Hey, listeners, welcome to this week's episode of the Human Enhancement Podcast. I'm really excited to have Petteri Lahtela on this program today. And I'm really excited to talk to him because he is the founder and CEO of one of the hardware products in the biometrics, biohacking space that I think is the most compelling. And that is the Oura Ring, O-U-R Ring. It's a really sleek, long battery life, heart rate variability, sleep tracker, activity tracker device. And I think it stands in comparison very, very well to a lot of the sleep or activity trackers that you might, commonly see out there. Before diving into it, let me just introduce the guest. Petteri, great to have you on the program.
Great to be here. It's really a pleasure. I've been expecting this.
So we're in a 10-hour difference. So we're based in San Francisco, and you are currently in Finland.
Yes.
What's, I guess, I always, I had some Finnish friends, and it's always the weather and the lighting there is always interesting. Is it half dark all the time? What season is it over there now?
Yeah, it's midwinter now, so it's cold, basically coldest season, and we only have, let's say, a few hours of light during the day.
Yeah.
In the shorter, let's say, darkest period of the midwinter, it's only a couple of hours of light during the day. But now the days are getting longer and longer. so it's good time to work.
Yeah.
Concentrate on working because it's dark outside.
Yeah, that's always been interesting. I think, it would be weird if you were just sitting in dark, for 24 hours a day, and you have to just use artificial light to understand what's going on. But anyways, Before we digress, hardware. What's your background? How did you get into this space initially? What's your story?
Yeah, so first 14 years of my career, I was in the context of telecoms. So I was in a small company where we developed first PC-based monitoring tool, protocol monitoring tool for mobile network testing. And we pioneered the GSM monitoring and 3G and later on the others. So from a small company of few people, we grew a market leader in two product categories, a global market leader in two product categories. And that was a really good way for me to learn about how to develop such high-tech product and take it to the international markets. So I ended up doing business in more than 30 countries, doing sales and marketing, and also establishing distribution networks in Asia, Europe, US, and meeting lots of people everywhere. And that was, let's say, from not only from the career perspective, but also my personal life experience perspective. It was a huge thing for me to learn so many things. But then eventually I got tired on mobile networks, and I didn't find meaning behind. So I wanted to turn my meaning kind of a doing and use my energy on something more meaningful. And this human well-being, human health and performance, it became my big driver 2004, 2005. So then I joined a company where we developed IT systems for chronic diseases management and prevention. So that was a good school for me to learn about how our body responds to our lifestyle, really, and dig deeper into that understanding that if we don't kind of keep the balance between load and recovery, then we end up developing some chronic disease, and then it's really hard to turn that to a health situation. Right. So it was a good way for me to learn and discuss learn from the best experts in the world. So majority of our customers were London healthcare trusts and hospitals, doctors there, and also elsewhere in the US and Japan and elsewhere in the world. So it was huge thing for me to learn in that context. And actually, I got the first ideas for this product in that context. So it became kind of a thought that, okay, what we could provide to individuals so that they could, in a very easy way, learn about how their body responds to their lifestyle. And then they could avoid the symptoms of prolonged stress, but also they could prevent the onset of chronic diseases.
Yeah.
So that was my kind of a take into this thing. And then we combined all these different views and started to explore with different ideas of the product. And we already knew we had this experience with Polar products and basically all the wearables in the market measuring your health condition. And eventually, after doing plenty of prototypes, we found out that from the finger we could get the most relevant signals. So very powerful access and accurate access to pulse waveform.
Which is very counterintuitive. So I remember the first time I approached your product, it was, most products out there are, wristwatches, right? Like an Apple Watch. And it seems intuitively that, the wrist has so much more blood vessel. It's a lot bigger size. Like the sensors on the Apple Watch, if you flip it around, there's like, multiple lasers shooting green light into you. How is, such a small, tiny device with the Oura Ring? I was using it all week and I misplaced it somewhere and I miss it, so I need to find it. But how does the sensors on the Oura Ring are so much more tiny? How do you explain that you can get as much data or better data than something on the wrist?
Yeah, actually.
How'd you decide to go on the finger as the area?
Yeah, so we used, we actually rewrite the software on pulse oximeter that is used in hospitals to measure your vital signs.
Right.
And from there we learned that, okay, from the finger, actually we can get really strong pulse waveform signal.
Right. So for those that don't understand what a pulse oximeter are, it's basically the red light that you clip onto your finger, right? And it measures your oxygen and some of the other biomarkers.
Yes, there is infrared signal and there is red LED as well. Right. So there are two different wavelengths used so that they can get the blood saturation, oxygen saturation measured as well, but also the pulse waveform. So we saw that the signal in these arteries that we have two arteries on each finger on the palm side. So we can get access to them directly and in a comfortable way. So that is a big thing, that if you want to have continuous data in an accurate way, it must be very comfortable to use. So therefore, Ring is one of the oldest wearables in the world. So people have worn them hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. And then by having right kind of sensors, so infrared sensors that we can access through the skin and through the flesh to the arteries directly, then we could get access to the pulse waveform very accurately, and then even to the pulse waveform variation, the pulse amplitude variation, which is modulated by breathing rate and also your blood pressure.
Right.
So now we are not talking anymore about having your average heart rate per minute, which normally is the case with wrist devices. So they estimate by sampling it. Mm-hmm. But we measure every beat and the time between the heartbeats and then pulse amplitude variation. And from those we can derive lots of insights about the whole pulse waveform characteristics.
Right. So how do you have so much more power in such a small device compared to something like a watch that's so much bigger?
Yeah. So first of all, because the pulse signal is so much stronger here.
As contrast to basically bone on the outer side of your wrist, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. And it's much more kind of targeted signal, because it's in the small space here, and there are two arteries there, and also that there are those small pumps
Right.
that are kind of lenses, and then we can target the infrared signal very directly to the artery, and they then get good reading of the pulse waveform. So it's also that the ring stays on very in a way that it doesn't disturb you at all. And also, if you just turn your hand or turn your finger, it doesn't turn anywhere. It just stays there, and the connection to the skin is so good.
Right.
So that is the big difference there, and also that allows us to manage the power very in an efficient way.
Right.
So if you compare to any other device, not even wrist devices, but also other devices, this new ring, it measures the continuous pulse waveform and the variation and the heartbeats around 14 hours per 24 hours. So 14 hours of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it can do it in a continuous basis for 7 days, up to 7 days, with one charge.
Which is massive power. I mean, I think as we all know with wrist devices, I mean, you got to do that every night, and it's annoying. So
exactly.
I think if you can, if it's a week-long battery life, that was a huge game changer for me.
Yes,
because you can set it and forget it. I think the worst thing with technology is like, oh, you got to recharge it. And I think with wrist device like an Apple Watch, which I also have, it's like every night you got to charge it or decide you want to put it for your sleep tracker, and you can't do both, and it's annoying.
Exactly, and also that the sampling rates in the wrist devices, they take maybe a few samples per minute or a few samples per second, or it varies between devices, but still they don't take continuous reading of your heart rate, the pulse waveform, and the time between the heartbeats, and so on. And this ring does it in ECG level, so we have validated it against the ECG.
Right.
So the heart rate is 99.9% the same as ECG, and HRV is 98.4% same as ECG.
And ECGs are essentially, gold standard, what you have in a hospital.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and from there we can derive the respiration rate, breathing variance, and different kind of this amplitude variation actually is really important for sleep staging.
Right.
So that is the reason why we get deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep detected so accurately as well compared to polysomnography.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about your algorithms there, but before that, I really want to contrast your approach with the approaches that essentially every other wearables product has gone after. I mean, it seems so obvious, after the fact that, okay, most people that are building watches are using so much more power to detect something that has a lot less signal and it's a lot less accurate. Why have they gone down the route of going, on the bony side of the wrist? I mean, I had heard some discussion that the original Apple Watch wanted to put the sensors on the strap and put it on the bottom side of the wrist where there's a lot more
That's true.
Arteries and
arteries
blood there, right? Like,
yes.
It seems like, you, in the approach with Oura, is that you designed the form factor and function very seamlessly together, where wearable manufacturers on the wrist have gone for the form over function, right? If you actually went for function, you would have the sensors on the wrist strap. Can you expound upon that?
Yes, I think one of the main reasons for that is that when we started developing the solution, we first defined the use cases, so meaningful use cases from the end user perspective. And actually, it ended up being very, very important for us because it helped us really do big decisions along the way when we were developing the hardware and software and eventually towards the end product, even the app as well. So we always could go back to the use cases that, okay, we are solving this use case, and this is what the user wants to learn with the product. So we followed that very rigorously and wanted to realize those. So I think that is the main thing that many companies, they kind of miss that part, and they just put the sensors into the device and okay, it can measure this and that, but they don't think that, okay, what is the real use case for the end user?
Right.
What is the benefit? And then the benefit is driving us to find always the best choice to reach that target. So that drove us also to select fingers, select ring form factor, and then kind of made us or forced us to make it comfortable to wear, because we wanted access to the longitudinal data, not
Right.
only just one day or few days,
Right.
but really long months and years of data.
Right.
So I think that is the main differentiator.
Yeah, and I want to dive into the algorithms and how your data is more accurate. So, given my experience, I've had a chance to wear it for a couple weeks now, and I was actually doing some experiments where I measured, how the Oura Ring was tracking me versus an Apple Watch app called Auto Sleep was like one of the most top-rated sleep tracking apps on the watch,
Yeah.
and I knew I had woken up, in the specific nights, walked around, went to the bathroom, etc. And the Oura Ring picked that up, and it showed like I was awake or in light sleep in various parts of the night, where the Apple Watch Auto Sleep app just didn't show that at all. It was just like just showing light sleep, deep sleep.
Yeah.
So again, from my very non-scientific n=1, a couple night experiment, it seemed like the Oura Ring was much more accurate than an Apple Watch app, even though it was like running continuously, shooting green lasers into the back of my wrist all night long. How did specifically how why was it so much better? I mean, was there some gyroscopic motion that I could detect that I was like up and moving around, and or did my heart rate go up and it knew I woke up? Can you get some insight into the differences there?
Yeah, the biggest difference is the pulse waveform variation. So and also the breathing, that we can derive the breathing rate from the interbeat interval. So the time between the heartbeats, we can derive your breathing rate and breathing variance. So and also from the amplitude variation, we can detect it as well. And breathing actually it correlates very much with the different sleep stages, as well as your heart rate and the heart rate variability. So all of them have certain kind of characteristics in different sleep phases. And that comes from the interplay between the autonomic nervous system and central nervous system. Basically, your brain and heart, they have continuous discussion. Vagal nerve is one of the things that is assigned to that. So we kind of capture that kind of discussion between your brain and heart, and the heart is expressing through the autonomic nervous system. It's expressing here in the peripheria from the pulse waveform and the pulse waveform characteristics. It's expressing what's happening in your brain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how, did you collect that data yourself? I mean, it seems like relatively novel data sets. I mean, how did you come up with the algorithms to translate heart rate variability, interval between heart rate, and then correlate that to breathing and sleep stages?
So, yeah, that is the one of the most clever parts of developing the product. So this Hannu Kinnunen, who came from Polar, he collected the data from the sleep labs. So the finger data and the polysomnography data, and found the correlations between those signals, those biosignals. So combining the accelerometer signal, so all the movements, and then all the characteristics of the pulse waveform and heart rate, breathing rate, and heart rate variability. So it gave through that process, he selected certain set of characteristics for each sleep stage.
Yeah.
And had the algorithms going through over the night,
right,
and correlating to the polysomnography continuously. So that's the way how we also did the validation later on, and also that Stanford Research Institute did completely independent validation. they actually bought only two rings from the Kickstarter campaign, and they ran a completely independent study of more than 40 young adults, and the results were really good. So they were surprised to see that how accurately the ring can detect different sleep stages from the finger.
No, it seemed very impressive. It's impressive that, I mean, it's kind of, I think it's commendable that you don't dive into, calling this machine, it is essentially a machine learning for, translating HRV into sleep stages.
Exactly.
But I think it is commendable that you're not out there necessarily hyping up, dropping buzzwords of AI, machine learning, but essentially you guys have built a machine learning algorithm to learn the characteristics of HRV, which is one single signal, and some of the things you can take from that and it translate into so many downstream effects, which is very cool. I mean, I think that's something that I have, from a athletic perspective, as we're diving, our communities looking at both athletic and cognitive performance and metabolic performance, the HRV seems to be one of these metrics that is implicated in so many downstream endpoints. HRV, more and more people are using it as a signal for recovery to to decide how heavy a workout they should be doing the next day, and it kind of makes sense because it is a reflection of the parasympathetic system, right? Like it's kind of like your it's just interesting, how could we speculate here, why is this one kind of arbitrary, if you will, measure of the heart implicated is so important that it can inform us on so many different parts of our day?
Yeah, it is one of the important signals, but there are also others. But if we concentrate first on the HRV, something that I would like to mention first is that it is, as you know, it's very sensitive to whatever you do. I mean, if you measure it randomly during the day, it gives you really random results as well. So the context where you measure the HRV must be kind of set, kind of a standard time slot or standard protocol when you measure it. And also that, as you know, in many applications, people tend to measure the HRV for the first 5 minutes in the morning when they wake up. But what we learned is that it's much more accurate if you do it over the night. So actually the ring measures all the time, every beat and the time between the heartbeats, and then it derives for every 5-minute block, it derives the HRV figure.
Right.
And then it gives you, as a trend between the days, it gives you how it's trending. So then it's kind of a most accurate way for you to use it as giving you a direction that how your autonomic balance is reflecting to what you do during the day.
Right.
So and also not only yesterday, but also the previous days. So how well you are recovering from the load that you had, and whether it's mental or physical,
right,
or cognitive load, whatever. But from the body's perspective, it reflects that balance.
Right. One thing that I thought was interesting about HRV was that it's kind of counterintuitive that you want more variability between heartbeats, which seems to be, when I first learned that I thought it was kind of counterintuitive, right? You kind of want to have a stable heartbeat. Like, why do you want more variability? So to be clear, the more variability, the more recovered you are. The less variability, the more stressed or more under strain your body is. Can we tease into that?
Yes, and also what is important to remember that we are all unique. So each one of us, we have our own capacity. If you think your autonomic nervous system as a water bowl, for example, then you have your own capacity. The amount of energy in your body is kind of reflected there as well. So we are unique in that sense that what is the dynamics, the capability of our autonomic nervous system to serve you as a very dynamic source of energy in certain situations, and also how quickly it can recover to the balance. So, so each one of us, we need to find our own level, and also how we can get the HRV higher. So see the trend, how it's trending, and then see what helps me to get higher HRV. So what kind of exercises, what kind of rhythms, how is my sleep quality, do I recover enough from what I'm doing? So and also it goes along with your capacity. So how much of energy you have for the day when you wake up in the morning. So all that is kind of reflected through the trending of your HRV.
Yeah. And I think that is, I think just scoping out a bit here, I think that's one of the interesting things with, I think the broader community around applying engineering principles to the human platform. People might call it biohacking or quantified self, but I really look at, something that we as human, we do is we make very precise inputs into the body. And I think companies like yours, you're tracking very quantifiably the outputs, the markers that we care about the body. And I think, in some future state of humanity, it makes sense that we can, very much tune the inputs, whether that's something that you eat or consume, or your exercise, or your fast, or your sleep protocol, exercise protocol, and really control the outputs. And I think you really need both parts to really have this tight feedback loop circle.
Exactly.
And I think, HRV and some of the metrics you track are very important. And I think, some other markers I imagine will be super important will be things like fasted blood glucose, blood serum ketone levels. I'm curious, what are the key things that you track today? And then, in for Gen 2, but, what is, Gen 3, Gen 4, what are the key things that you track today? And what do you think are interesting things to track, in the future?
Yeah, so one of the, let's say, very differentiating thing what we measure in addition to having gyro and 3D accelerometer and this pulse waveform and HRV, those things, is the body temperature measurement. So the ring measures actually in the thermometer level. It measures the body temperature variation between the nights. So in 0.07 degrees centigrade resolution, you see it's like sleeping with thermometer every night. and your body temperature also is a way for your body to reflect how it is reflecting to your or responding to your lifestyle. Right. So what you've eaten, what time did you eat, what kind of food did you eat, how is your sleeping protocol, how it's recovering from exercise, right. and so on, how your internal organs are operating. So it tells actually about so many things, but also especially for women, the ring measures also your menstrual cycles. So it shows yes. So it also kind of reflects your hormonal balance, right? And it helps female athletes to optimize their exercise so that, for example, strength training is better to do in a certain phase of the menstrual cycle and so on, so that then they can really utilize all that power that they get from the hormonal situation in that certain phase.
Also probably useful for fertility as well, right? Like I'm sure, it also correlates in different parts of the cycle. Yeah.
Exactly. And then also that they can avoid the overtraining as well when they are aware of the phases. So I think that is one big differentiator. So there's no other wearable device or any other device that you can actually get your body temperature reading every morning, the variation of that, how it's changing over the time. Right. And then another thing is when you combine these things together, so you see your resting heart rate curve as a trend, your heart rate variation as a trend, also your body temperature variation as a trend, your breathing frequency variation. So what we've learned is that, for example, when you are recovering from illness, what can happen, and we have many of these cases, that your when you are recovering from the illness, your resting heart rate will come down first, and then your body temperature will come to the normal level. But there are cases that the inflammation in your lungs can stay there still for 2 weeks or even longer. So your breathing rate during the night is much higher than normally. So it means that the inflammation is still there. So you can't return to your normal exercise routines, or otherwise you can ruin everything you've done for the previous few months or even years.
Right.
So that's something that when you combine many meaningful biosignals as a long-term trend, then it adds that kind of value that you can't get in any other way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it sounds at some point you want to simulate essentially and project forward, the full human state, right? And I think, our jobs is to like decide what are the most important signals, and then build meaningful protocols around them, right?
Exactly. And one example of this is what we are coming up with this Generation 2 ring, is that we can really personalize the guidance to you, because we can also detect your chronotype and your circadian alignment based on your chronotype. So, based on Dr. Michael Breus, there are at least 4 different chronotypes, and he names them according to mammals. So lions, bears, dolphins.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that. People. Yeah. I see people saying, "Hey, I'm a lion sleeper." It's like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Exactly. So basically, it is, everyone have heard about morning persons and evening persons.
Right.
And so it is just that each one of us are also unique in that sense, that we have our internal clock, and you can't change it basically. So it's better adapt to that, and then find out that, okay, what are my optimal rhythms for my day? What is the optimal time to go to bed?
Right.
What is the optimal time to wake up? And then for the exercises, high intensity exercises especially, but also for the mental work and that kind of stuff. And also, what are the best meal times for me? So it kind of connects to your metabolic rate as well. So if you combine your DNA information, then you can understand that, okay, in the evening, my metabolic system cannot handle protein or some other food so well. So it's better for me to eat this kind of stuff. So that my digestive system.
Absolutely. I want to double down on that. I mean, I think there's a lot of new data emerging around circadian rhythms. I mean, I think when people talk about intermittent fasting periods, right? Like there's some discussion. Do you want to, not skip breakfast, eat like a big late dinner, or do you want to, skip dinner, eat a big breakfast? And I think there is some personalization there, where I think a lot of the existing data is so confounded, because it's like, okay, we have every phenotype is just thrown in there. You have lion and dolphin sleepers, and all morning and evening people, and you get noisy signal. It's like, okay, well, if you actually type people's actual circadian rhythms and then put them on protocols, then you get more meaningful data.
Exactly. That's our finding as well. And I'm doing intermittent fasting myself, and
what's your protocol? Fasting. I'm fasting today.
My protocol is that I normally don't eat anything after 7 p.m. in the evening, and then I'm fasting until the noon the next day.
Okay.
That's my normal, and I can very easily I can continue from that without basically eating anything.
Right. It's like a 15
before next evening.
or 17/7 sort of
something like
schedule.
That. Yes.
Interesting.
And it works for me very well, because I'm used to do longer fasting, and sometimes even just water fasting for 3 to 5 days easily. Yeah. So the intermittent fasting, I find it really, really useful for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes hard for me to understand why it's so difficult for some people.
Yeah. I mean, I did a 7-day fast about a year ago, just with water. I mean, the longer fast, I can see how it's very intimidating at first. But yes. I think like a 16/8 or a 17/7 is quite manageable. I think you just need to decide to do it. I think people don't have the willpower or the social, structure around them to, realize that this is like not unhealthy. This is reasonable. This is actually science and evidence backed.
Yes. Yes.
I wanted to get your thoughts on future signals. I mean, I think obviously there's some really compelling signals, and there's very good reasons why you have the existing signals into the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 product. How
Yes.
about again, pie in the sky, if you had infinite resources and infinite ways to like pack big sensors into small things. What do you think are the most interesting things to track in the future?
Yeah, of course. Since I have background in chronic diseases, of course, this blood glucose variation, that's something that would be great if we would understand it better. So, because continuous blood glucose monitoring hasn't been there for so long, we have users, we have doctors who are continuously doing that, and they are correlating it with Oura Ring data, and they have found very good correlation between readiness score and this long-term fasting glucose. So we are continuously doing that work and kind of trying to find the meaningful way to provide that understanding that if we can get into the blood glucose reading without actually getting your blood. So that is something that we are kind of building correlations for, and looks promising.
That would be I mean, that's I think just to add color to that. I mean, I think I wear a CGM often, and it's so important for metabolism to understand your blood glucose, and it's super important because again, it's how you diagnose type 2 diabetes. Right. So and that's a third of Americans are pre-diabetic or diabetic, and like 80% of the people that are pre-diabetic don't even know it. So I think it's definitely one of these important measures, and there's so many different efforts to attack it. And I think that was the one thing that I thought was interesting. Can we correlate, intuit it with non-invasive measures, right? Because like when I wear a CGM, you have a little needle sticking into your arm.
Yeah,
exactly. It's not that annoying. I find it non-intrusive, but I don't know if that's going to be acceptable for everyone. I mean, I think I realize that I'm a little bit out there, right? It's like you got a little disc in your arm.
Yes.
But I would much rather wear a ring.
Yeah, my view is that it's too intimidating for majority of people.
Yeah.
So those who are in a phase of pre-diabetes, so they don't kind of they don't want to do that. So they should be, and also that it is a combination of many things. It's not only blood glucose value that helps you to understand what's happening in your body, but it is strongly correlating with kind of a long-term balance or imbalance of your autonomic nervous system. So you have to understand that what is your capacity and how you can live your life keeping or maintaining the balance between load and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's more meaningful to have this kind of a long-term perspective that for me as a unique human being, what are the most meaningful biosignals that help me understand this kind of long-term perspective? How my eating habits, my exercise habits, different protocols, how my sleep, how restorative sleep I get. So I'm always willing to go deeper into the understanding, more holistic way, not only kind of tie my thinking into one specific signal,
right?
But combine it with many other signals, so that, and having a long-term perspective. So then it gives more understanding that, okay, what is causing this situation,
right?
And how my body is responding to different things, because it can be so many things that cause that imbalance that leads to pre-diabetes.
Sickness, No, I mean, I think that's the way more and more people will look at healthcare and medicine, right? Because I think you speaking with a lot of doctors that have been on this program. I mean, I think a lot of the institutional setup for medicine is find a specific number, one signal that is wrong, and then give someone a drug to like bring it back down or change it. And I think I mean, I think it sounds like you're an engineer by training. And I'm a computer scientist by training. We just, the human body is a very complex network of systems, and it's very rarely that you in a complex system you nudge something down that you don't cascade across a number of different effects. And I'm sure like the doctors out there listening realize that, yes, they agree with that, And it's just like, I think having more metrics that inform, a practitioner or the patient, how these things manipulate when you do an intervention adds more data, adds more power to an treatment and routine for general health and wellness.
Yes, and also exactly kind of in the context of blood glucose, I'm more interested in finding out the correlation with other signals so that I can get the understanding that how actually it should change, because it is not stable signal. Again, it's like HRV.
Yeah.
It's not stable. It is continuous variation, and it's the same with blood glucose,
right.
And also it's the same with blood pressure as well. So we don't actually know how our blood pressure should be varying during the day,
right.
during the 24 hours period. So we have what we see from our signals from the pulse amplitude variation, which is one of the modulators, is blood pressure. So we can see the big changes there over the night and so on, and different sleep phases, and also when you wake up in the morning. So it's a continuous interplay between your hormones.
Right.
So your hormonal balance is affecting your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, because you need to be able to perform physically or mentally in different ways during the different times of the day.
Right.
So your body is after you wake up in the morning, there's high peak in so-called stress hormones, so that you
cortisol,
really wake up.
Right.
Yes, cortisol and testosterone and so on, so that you really are ready to wake up.
Yeah.
And so your body wakes you up to be prepared for doing something, basically finding food.
Right.
So your body is driving you to find food to eat and then get energy from that. And then in the evening, melatonin hits you to knock your brain down so that you are prepared for your sleep. So it's kind of continuous interplay between hormones.
Right.
And blood glucose is one of the hormones that you can affect kind of with your intentional protocols of eating habits,
right.
your sleeping rhythms, your exercise routines,
right.
and so on.
Well, I think you misspoke. Glucose isn't a hormone, but yes, it is affected by insulin or other hormones. It's a biomarker that is affected.
Insulin, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, insulin is affected. What we can affect with our intentional kind of protocols.
Yeah. No. I think the suite of sensors, I think it really is effective. I mean, I think it is cool to see how you guys could actually sort of predict or measure when one falls asleep, right? I think one of the cool things with the ring, with Oura Rings, that it seems to be, I'm not checking my phone and measuring when exactly I fall asleep, but it seems pretty accurate in terms of how one is able to do that through. And I guess I presume it's intuited through a change in all the different measures or all the sensors that you guys have.
Yes, actually, body temperature is one of the things that when we just lay down, it's in our biology that the blood pressure is evenly kind of distributed in the body, and then also that the core body temperature is pressed out to the peripheria, so your hands and feet get warmer. That is a basic functionality built into the biology, so that you can fall asleep. And some people have problems falling asleep if their hands or feet are cold, if they're too cold, so they can't fall asleep. So you can help falling quicker asleep by warming up your hands and feet. So then you help your peripheral blood circulation that way. So that is one of the signals that kind of there's big difference there when you lay down and go to sleep. So melatonin is hitting and that causes this to happen, so that the core body temperature, so your core body is cooling down and your peripheral
extremities, right, warming up.
Is warming up, yes. and then there is big change in the heart rate and also heart rate variation and breathing patterns. So many things change when you go to sleep and
Transition, yeah.
start falling. Yeah, the transition,
Yeah.
and of course movements. There's no movements and that kind of stuff. So all those combined, then you can find the characteristics that is interesting in different phases.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about was the approach to having, the Oura Ring being very passive in terms of surfacing data. Was that an active choice? What I mean by that is that, you have the Oura app and you have the ring on your hand. You can't necessarily query the ring to pull up, a data like I want to
Yes.
see heart rate now.
Yes. Yes.
But one could imagine that that would be interesting. Like, hey, I want to see some. I want to see my temperature right now, or I want to see X
Yes.
right now. Was that
Yes.
this design choice? Was it a technical limitation? What is your thinking between passively servicing information versus I want to
Yeah.
actively query?
It was again a use case choice. So we wanted to concentrate on the core use cases to get the most meaningful biosignals, and therefore we also wanted to make the ring as a standalone device, so that we can limit the Bluetooth connection to the mobile. So actually we made the ring as a full-featured computer with enough processing power and memory to work standalone. So it doesn't need your mobile. It doesn't. The algorithms are not in the cloud. They are in the ring, and so that we can limit the Bluetooth connectivity to 2 to 3 minutes per 24 hours, and only transfer when it's necessary for visualization of the data. So that was one of the reasons. But also that when we do that way, then we can refine the data inside the ring. So we can only transfer the kind of processed data to the mobile phone. So whenever you stream the data, it's also possible to stream the data, the heart rate variability, and the movements and so on. It's possible to stream. Technically, we have that possibility, and we have done some demonstrations that showing in real-time data, and we have an engineering view in the app, not available for the users currently, but maybe in the next phases with Gen 2 it will be there.
Right.
So that you can measure your heart rate variation whenever you want, and especially the cases again for the daytime measurements, we are thinking from the use case perspective that what helps you to add value, add understanding about your recovery or readiness level. So then we concentrate on measuring automatically, like naps and that kind of a restorative periods during the day, your meditation sessions or relaxing exercises or whatever kind of contributes to your readiness or your recovery protocol. So we concentrate on those, but also allow the user to measure whenever they want. For example, after the exercise, if you want to see that how quickly your heart rate is going down after the exercise.
Yeah, I think that's like I think a smart distinction. Sometimes I want to be active, and you have an Apple Watch. You can say I want to see my heart rate now.
Yes.
But I can also see that, from the user perspective, sometimes I just like not having to think about a device on my hand. I mean, I think the cool thing with the Oura Ring, I think especially with Gen 2, it just looks sexy. It's like a cool looking product. And I think people don't think that it's like a biohacker computer on their hand. So I think it is like this interesting trade-off. But yes, I mean, I think, one of the things I like to measure, when I'm in a hot sauna, for example, is to just see my heart rate and get to a point where I realize I'm pushing the limits of my length in the sauna, for example, and having an active view for very specific use cases would be potentially interesting, as you unlock that functionality for more advanced users or whatnot.
Yes. With Gen 2 there is much better possibility for that because the power management has improved. It's 10 times longer,
right,
or 10 times better, and the processing power is bigger. So with this one, it's possible to do that. So you can, as I said, we can do continuous heart rate monitoring, and it includes every beat and the time between the heartbeats for about 14 hours per day, and for 7 days
Yeah.
with one charge. So then there's not only your night, but also during the day, there's several hours of continuous measurement,
Right.
not sampling just every minute, maybe between every 10 seconds or something, but every beat and the time between the
Right.
heartbeats and so on. So it's big difference.
Yeah. And I've been, as you know, been playing with the Oura Ring for the last couple of weeks and posting some photos with it on social. And a lot of people have been tweeting at me being like, when is it going to be available? Is that Gen 1, Gen 2?
Yes.
Yeah, can we get what are the product details? When can people get Gen 2? I know it's been on pre-order for a few months now. When do
Yes.
people get their goods?
Yeah, so we start deliveries, volume deliveries in April. So we have customers already in more than 50 countries and pre-orders from more than 50 countries. About 60% of them are from US, and California is the biggest area where we have
Yeah.
users. So we start deliveries in April, but I need to mention that there are already so big number of those pre-orders that not all of them will be delivered in April. It will be May and so on. So we've been really, let's say, successful. So especially our current users have been helping us find new customers, because the conversion rate from the referrals from our existing users, can you figure how big the conversion was?
What in terms of referral? I'm gonna
Yeah,
just
from
guess
referral to order.
30%.
70%.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's
Yeah, it's
insanely.
ridiculous.
That's.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say I knew it was gonna be high. Otherwise, you wouldn't brag about
Yeah.
it. But
Yes.
I mean, 70% conversion rate per
70%.
referral is insane.
70%. And
Wow.
that tells about how committed our users are. And that is supported. Our long-term retention rates are
Yeah.
also 2 to 3 times higher than any other wearables.
Congrats on the process. I mean, I think
Yeah.
any last thoughts here. I mean, it sounds like we've covered the broad gamut. I like that we started from a very holistic approach and all the different skill sets that come to bring the Oura Ring into place, from the hardware to the design, from the business side, the distribution side, the use case side, down to what I think were some of the interesting insights into the advantages of the form factor. I mean, I think again it seems silly, knowing a little bit more about the specific hardware state that people are focused on the form so much that it makes the function really hard to use, right? Like, again, a watch that you need to charge, a couple times a day or at least once a day makes it very, very unwieldy for sleep tracking or for continuous tracking. And so I appreciate the good work you guys are doing on, and really, I think being a part of what I see as part of the future. In the future, there will be a continuous dashboard of human biometrics. Just as we have like an activity monitor for our computers, we have, the report on our house, the report on our car, for,
Yes.
the most valuable, most complicated machinery that we all will ever own, which is our bodies. We have very, very little data on, and it seems silly to me that no one is building, or very few people or organizations like yourself are building the right tools there, right technologies there. So, I want to say keep up the good work there, and we want to keep in touch and support if we can.
Thank you. It's really what is exactly driving us. So we just don't want to kind of accept what is there in the current paradigm, but we want to go also deeper into understanding in the context of what is the meaning of sleep, what is the meaning of the glymphatic system that cleanses the brain during the night, how the sleep stages are correlating with that cleansing system. And so all the kind of body functions that we have certain kind of a method or something to measure that currently, but still we haven't kind of understood it so far. So we want to dig deeper into the understanding that how in a unique level for each individual, how we can empower them by learning about their own body reactions in the context of their own lifestyle, their own daily choices, and different protocols they have.
Well said. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Petteri.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was great.
Well, that was a really fun and interesting conversation with the founder of Oura Ring. And I've been a personal fan of the product as well. So we're doing something really, really special for this episode of the Human Enhancement Podcast. We're actually doing a partnership with Oura and giving you discounts for their new version 2 ring. So when this goes out, this will be time sensitive. When you type HVMN in the checkout, you actually get a special discount. So this episode will go live February 26th, and for the 2 weeks that this goes live immediately, you will get $100 off on the Oura Ring. So that will go. That promotion will end on March 12th, 2018. After that 2-week period, you'll just get $75 off. Still a pretty good value, and that cutoff will be March 26th. After March 26th, if you tune in a month late, you'll still get $50 off. So use the code HUMAN, HVMN, at the checkout for a special discount code.